Hi, everyone, and welcome to the China EVs and More podcast, where my co-host, Lei Xing, and I will go over the week's most important and interesting news coming out of the global EV, AV, and mobility sectors. Happy Halloween, everyone, as well. What Lei and I discuss today is based on our opinions and should not be taken as investment advice. For those that are new to the show, welcome. And to our loyal listeners and viewers, welcome back. Don't forget to subscribe and like and help us get the word out about this podcast to other enthusiasts. And of course, tune in again next week. My name is Tu Lee. I am the managing director at Sino Auto Insights, a global management consultancy that helps organizations bring innovative and tech-focused products and services to the transportation and mobility sectors. I write a free weekly newsletter that we pull many of our discussion topics from. You can sign up for it at sinoautoinsights.substack.com, which of course I encourage you all to do. Lei, a scary Halloween Lei, whose mic didn't work very well for a second there. Can you please introduce yourself?
Well, I hope it's working now. I think it's working now.
It's working now.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Lei Xing, former chief editor of China Auto Review. And yes, this is episode number 226. So it's Halloween. And here are some scary things on my mind. First of all, the clock goes back 1 hour on Sunday, which means we're going to have to deal with a long winter when night falls before 5 p.m. Second of all, 2 months left in 2025. Hard to believe. Very scary. How fast this year went by, right?
Yeah.
And third of all, the horrendous numbers that we saw financially over the last few days, including BYD.
Yeah, BYD is not excluded.
I know that's been a
that.
topic that's been
That's
on
scary.
Yeah. Porsche, 99% drop in operating return on sales, basically to nilch for Q3. Mercedes, Volkswagen Group, as a result of the Porsche, they had their negative quarter profit since the pandemic, since I think 2020, when everything was down. So those are the scary things on tap for today, in the spirit of Halloween.
And we are 1 day away from sales numbers being posted by the Chinese automakers, likely with the exception of Li Auto and a couple of other players.
Well, the other scary thing, since you mentioned Li Auto, is the weekly numbers are history. I know they're still being reported, but Li Auto no longer reports them. And obviously their numbers does not look good as before. And they just announced this recall of the Mega, which is actually in hindsight a relatively bold move, because nothing has been concluded from the official investigation. It's just based on their own findings of that fire, 10 days ago, that was quite talked about in the industry. Safety. So
the Li Auto Mega catastrophe, because it wasn't a tragedy, people did not die. I watched it a few times, and they're very, very lucky that inside the vehicle there's a lot of people that were, or there's someone that was quick thinking.
Luckily, I think there were only 2 passengers, one in the back seat and one driver. That's what was purported to show, or based on the owner who released that statement, a legal statement of what happened. So yeah.
And we have to remember that these battery cells get assembled into modules, and then these modules get assembled into a battery pack, and that's what you get the skateboard. And whenever there's additional layers, so there's the cell layer, there's the module layer, and then there's the pack. and they're supposed to be flame retardant materials that are trying to make sure that no explosions happen, or if there is flames or there are flames, then they are contained. So that's where, and I'm not a technical expert on battery packs, but it seemed like it happened really, really fast. Um,
So
so,
in the recall that Li Auto sent out, the culprit was the coolant that runs through the battery pack. The coolant, and they're recalling, even they're replacing, by the way, the battery pack, the whole thing. That's their measure. Okay, that's big money. And then second, there's something called the aluminum coolant cooling plate for the motor controller that they will also replace. And
so it looks like that plate didn't do its job, maybe.
something wrong with the coolant, I don't know. But at this point, it doesn't appear to be the issue with cell, which means CATL. If I was CATL, CATL hasn't made any public statement about this because it is a CATL Chilean battery from the cell. But Li Auto worked with CATL for the pack. So I mean, currently it looks like it's not CATL's fault or the cell fault. Just the mechanical, how the battery pack cooling. But one source of information that the auto released or said was that they did see an issue beforehand, like a few hours beforehand, but nothing was done. So they said that's something that they need to, work better later. But it's what if there were other passengers especially in the third row, right? I mean,
Well, if there were children, because Mega, you would think that there would be children potentially in that
yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So,
But as of this point, I just tweeted that first of all, this is actually a big PR win for Li Auto because they wanted to be ahead and try to be transparent on what happened, what their findings were, what their action was. So from a crisis PR point of view, they did a good job. But I think there's still question marks on the safety of. Even though Li Auto says all of their vehicles are more in terms of the national battery safety standard, that they're way ahead or way above the standard, but this still happens. So um,
so sometimes what happens, internally, is that these car companies will get the vehicle and then do the analysis, the post-mortem, and find out that it could be a single component, single part. In the case of electric vehicles, there could be a battery management software system issue, or it could be a one-off. Tier ones normally do is they build parts in batches, like lots. And so lot number one could have 1,000 parts, and then lot number two could have another 1,000 parts. And that's how you kind of manage some of the quality, and you're able to really pinpoint it. And then, okay, this was part number 5 on lot one. So we're going to check all of parts in lot one to make sure that they don't have that flaw. I think, that's how they start sometimes. And if we think about, we're talking about Li Auto, but if we think about CATL, they're lucky too that it's not a CATL problem because CATL batteries are everywhere in China.
that's exactly the point. How this could escalate right into a more serious problem.
And you talk about Li Auto getting in front of it. This is going to be a big check for them potentially to write. We're talking like more than Neo replacing, or Geely replacing the AI chip or the Orin chip in the 001s. Remember
Yeah,
that?
the numbers, it can be easily crunched. 11,411 units being recalled. That's about half of what they sold, the megas. Multiply by 50,000 RMB. I'm conservatively 50,000 RMB a battery pack. That's half
which
of
is
the
about
cost of their-
$8,000, which is about
Yeah.
$8,000.
So, yeah, but
They're lucky that in this instance they're lucky that the Mega didn't sell like crazy.
and as of this moment, Xiaomi hasn't done anything on their accident. Like a month before.
Well, didn't they recall? Didn't they do an over-the-air update?
That recall was on the previous accident that happened in March. So it also, I think this incident also shows different tactics of the players, what they're willing to do to get their reputation. Li Autos has always been fast, right? So especially currently, they're facing extreme headwinds on their.
I also wonder if that has anything to do with Li Auto being in Beijing.
Well, I mean, there's Li Auto, there's Xiaomi, there's Beijing Hyundai, there's Beijing Benz. I mean, every one of those companies are facing different scrutiny, right? Or a situation and what they are, right? But yeah, that's part of the Juan, right? Part of the Juan.
So let's talk a little bit about these numbers with Mercedes and Porsche and Volkswagen Group. Can you summarize what you saw? I've been and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about the Reuters Conference I was just at.
Sure, we'll talk about that.
I have not been working. I've been working. If you know what I mean.
Different type of work.
Yeah. So.
No, I mean, what can you say? I think Q3 was just it's a culmination of every one of these Audi, Mercedes, Porsche, Volkswagen Group. There's just common thread among them is the intense competitive pressure they face in China. There's mention of that in all of their announcements. But it's only half the problem, I think. China's obviously the one place where they're getting killed, but there's other issues, right? There's when you talk about Europe, you talk about these suppliers needing to lay off, I don't know how many people, 20, 30,000 people. Mercedes is doing that, right, to get their costs down. Right, all of these tariffs, luckily, right, we heard about Xi and Trump meeting. We saw that there's some movements on the tariffs.
Well, in the immediate term, Lei, we're talking about chips from Nexperia shutting down factories.
Exactly. We talked about that last episode. So all of these headwinds are just, it's Halloween. It's scary. To put it mildly.
We talk about this roundabout a lot, maybe, but if you took a picture today, Lei, of Audi, Beamer, Mercedes, Porsche, Volkswagen Group in China, knowing what we know about their future planning, their future technology roadmap in China, who do you think stands the best chance to flatten out and maybe even grow a little bit over the next 3, 4, 5 years?
I'd say all.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, at the rank, Volkswagen Group is the most active, and then Mercedes, BMW Group. Volkswagen Group obviously includes Audi. Porsche is realigning their sales network. They actually, what they did in China, I'm sure you know about this. Porsche recently opened a Chaoyang Porsche Center, which combined their first Porsche Center in China. That was on Chang'anjie.
Yep.
That was first ever one in China. with another one in Goldenport,
Right.
right?
Cool. So let me
That's
explain to
part
the
of
folks.
their realignment of the channel. We don't have to even talk about products because, right, they're going to sell less than 40,000 in China this year.
So
You know,
for the folks that are wondering, Chang'an is where Tiananmen Square and Forbidden City is on. It is basically where it's like Washington D.C. and the White House kind of thing, right? And then Golden Port is a racetrack in the
near the
suburbs
airport.
of Beijing.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the suburbs of Beijing, probably an hour and a half outside of city center where Chang'an is.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree.
I mean,
We can talk a little bit about the Reuters conference because I did talk about Porsche and I did say that they were at 95,000 units in 2023, I believe, or 22, and
yeah, it
so
was up there.
now
I mean, it was up
now they're under 40. So
halved in 3 years, basically. Yeah.
so what you're saying is that they're restructuring because they don't have the demand that they used to. So the dealerships, the service centers, they don't need as many. And that also tells you that when you restructure, you're trying to take capacity out of the system because capacity that's underutilized or not utilized at all is just overhead costs that weighs you down. So when you restructure, you also signal to the market that we don't see in the near term, the next 5, 6, 7 years, 4, 5, 6 years, we don't see us getting back to 95,000 units. So I think that's also really important to articulate and point out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, all of their Mercedes launching the CLA next week, the locally built CLA. Uh, uh, you know, Beijing
That
Honda.
is such that is
Beijing,
such a linchpin product for
yeah.
Mercedes in
Yeah.
China.
Because similar, Beijing Honda launched that Evo, their first ever battery electric
Right.
SUV. And guess who the partners are, right? CATL, DJI Auto, Momenta, FinDreams. Okay.
Oh, right.
uh, and their strategy, their tactics, they're in place. The rest is up to the market. The rest is up to the execution. They have these products they think are right for the market that are coming, and we have to find out um, next year because this year is pretty much done, really. Um, and then yeah,
The foreign legacies, to your point, in 2026, some of them are going to be launching very important vehicles for their brands, and a slowdown in the price war and kind of moving past this involution should be very helpful for them and to them. In it, we talk about. So I saw Ganesh. He was at the conference, so he says hello. But anyways,
yeah,
so like companies like Neo who are kind of finding their footing in the China market. I think it's important for them as well to kind of get some of these players that are nipping at their heels out of out of the system, out of the market.
I mean, we these everything we take a kind of a relative lens at what's happening. So BYD profit down 33%. They still earned, I think it was like over $1 billion dollars in profit. That's still pretty good, but relative terms, it was down compared to last year. Their revenues were down. And if you remember last year, I think 2024, it was the year when BYD had more revenues than Tesla. And then also, uh, there were an improvement in margins, gross margins in Q3, I think. But on the flip side, we have the Chinese market always in these 12, 18, 24 month cycles, which means at this point in time, it's probably the Neos, the Xpengs, the Leap Motors that are running away, it almost seems. And whereas the bigger ones, the ones that were running away, BYD, Li Auto, some of these other ones are in a funk. And then by the time this year, by the time next year, by this time next year, who knows? It could be someone else. I think that's currently what we're seeing. That if you're on top, be careful. I mean, Geely, right? Geely, for example, launched the Xingyao 6, 70,000 renminbi, $10,000 um, EV, EREV, and BEV, right? That's hitting BYD's market segment, the chin, right?
Sub 20,000 US dollar in China is so intense, so intense.
Yeah, and then on the
And
other extreme, the large SUVs, right? Li Motor launched the D19, and more coming. In fact, this guy who went over from BYD, this Zhao Changjiang, he was the Denza guy. He moved over to Lucid. Apparently, because Lucid is launching a D9 competitor, and this Zhao Changjiang, he's a lifer at BYD. He was kind of the guy who launched the Denza, the brand, the D9 and other models. So right there's these part of the competition of talent even. Um,
to me,
so
Denza is a little bit like Neo because I believe in their products. I like Neo's products. I like Denza's products. They look great and interior, exterior, and a little bit perplexed that they're not able to grab more share in the like not ultra premium, but the above.
well,
It's premium-ish, I
yeah, when you
guess.
have like a Neo ESA, which they say it's better than an MPV, right? That's one competitor that's they've already done 10,000 units in 40 days, and likely they can get to probably 10K a month run rate by the end of the year. It's just one competitor that you would never thought of a month, 2 months ago.
Right. So yeah, BYD is not that surprising. The numbers still stand out, but competition is really also an easier way to say it. BYD is also not immune to competition,
Nobody
and
is.
yeah, exactly. Well, I I see Xiaomi doing pretty well consistently, so I think they stand out because they only have two products. So and they're both new-ish in the market, and they have a ton of value.
Uh,
They're priced so aggressively, you know?
yes, Xiaomi. I think the for the in the lens of maybe the foreign competitors, I think they still have a huge question mark on Xiaomi. Meaning, okay, they have the engineering, they have the technology, but long term, I think they still question the long term kind of the durability and quality of Xiaomi's.
Sure.
Uh,
And I think some people are anticipating Xiaomi entering the foreign markets. They said what, 27, but
2027, yes, not that
but
far away, which
it
is
isn't. But man, I I think barring a backlash on how the two cars look like other cars, I think the Europeans would eat those the U7 and the Su7 up. So
yeah. And then Xiaomi is coming out with this Land Rover ish, Range Rover ish U9, right?
yeah, so let me talk a little bit about the Reuters conference. It's the second year that I've spoken at it, and this year I was talking with Joe. I wasn't a huge fan of the title. It was like USA versus China, and I really wanted to emphasize, and it was a more interactive. We were in a pretty big conference room, about 70, 80 people,
As
and
she faced Trump. So good. That was a good
yes,
title.
and so yeah, I didn't want to focus on all this stuff, asking whether or not we should take China seriously. I wanted to focus more on Joe and I to focus more on what are the companies doing, what are the brands they're hearing about, who do they think, when do they think the Chinese will enter the market. So it was a really good conversation, pretty open, a lot of open-minded people, and surprisingly, a lot. So we had those polls that you
Oh,
could
yeah,
see right
right.
away,
Scan
and BYD was the big winner on which brand do you hear about a lot. Xiaomi was also a big winner. Neo was there, and then Ganesh was sitting in the back, so I could refer to Ganesh, in person, saying, "Hey, we have a distinguished guest here, Ganesh Iyer, who is the CEO of Neo USA." And then I also brought up the fact that you and I had done these long trips over the last couple of years, in an Xpeng and also a Neo. So it is it's starting to set in, and but there's this still a little bit of there was a panel discussion on automatic toll payment with
Hmm.
MasterCard, and is that a thing? Like, a lot of cars can already do that. I don't know why there needed to be a panel discussion on it, but MasterCard was sponsoring the panel, I guess, and so
Okay.
maybe it made sense for them. But Ganesh was, because what kicked off the conference was Rivian CFO, and who said that they are still anticipating R2 to launch in the second half of 2026.
Hmm.
And then Lucid interim CEO Mark Winterhoff, Nick was there. He says hello, and so
We'll
they
talk about
had
Lucid, Uber
yeah.
after. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. So so Mark was really leaning into the level 4 and the announcements that were being made. And so I think, if you want to roll into the Lucid conversation, so like, who else was there? Oh, Ralph Giles ended the conference, and man, that guy, he's
we saw
so,
him right
huh?
3 years ago at LA Auto Show, right? We had
Yeah, I saw him a couple months ago at that conference, and so I got a Ussie, and when you listen to him talk, number one, he comes off really sincere. Number two, he's able to explain kind of difficult things or complicated things very easily. So it's no wonder that he's a leader at one of these big companies, and
a long
he
time.
I
I mean,
think
he's been there. Yeah.
34 years. I
Yeah.
think he's had more than 11 CEOs or something like that, or something. But anyways, what did you want to talk about? Lucid, you want to kind of
No, I
talk
think
to everybody about that?
I think L4 this past week is one of the, if not the biggest keywords in the industry because of Nvidia, because of Uber, because of Stellantis, because of Lucid, Neuro, right?
Motional's back in the game.
Motional, right? And all, that picture with Jensen's the PowerPoint he stood in front of, right? Listed all those names: Pony, WeRide, uh, Wave, and then Xpeng next week in their AI day is going to announce their updated plans on their own level 4 robotaxi based on the G9. So I think it's going to be an exciting upcoming months and years where we have two things going on: the so-called level 4 consumer vehicle and the level 4 robotaxi, and how Nvidia is playing a role in both, how these OEMs are playing a role, how these mobility platforms are playing a role. Xpeng, right? Xpeng, they're not going to run the robotaxis. They're going to produce a dedicated level 4 robotaxi. Because in China we talk about,
Tensor.
we haven't mentioned Tesla, right? Tesla is doing their own kind of thing. In China, the level 2 plus plus is already quite mature. Where the rest of the world, right? They also mentioned, uh, I think Lucid was talking about this mind off in their mid-size, so the smaller gravity, if you will, upcoming in, I don't know, 27 to 20.
They said late 26.
Yeah. And so this two fronts, I think it's quite exciting, and especially Uber is really betting, right? They're working with every player possible, whether it's the OEMs, whether it's the NVIDIA, the rest of the world, right? Working with the Chinese robotaxi startups. So that's I think that's the exciting thing for me. It seems that all of a sudden this is L4.
It does seem like that, doesn't it? If I said it feels like autonomy 2.0, where 7 years ago everybody said it's right around the corner, but now technology companies are
We're
making
there
bets.
again.
It's not
We're
just
there
car
again.
companies.
Yeah.
And so, and I feel so in between that 7 years, you and I have been have taken dozens of rides, right? In China, United States. And so, whereas 7 years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago, you and I would have been pretty awestruck or pretty amazed by these partnership announcements. It just seems like because of AI, because of compute, because of the affordability of LiDAR and sensors, we're just getting to a more realistic view of autonomy in the future. GM, one of the most conservative automotive companies that I know of, they announced on Tech Day 2028, we're going to have an Escalade IQ with level 3. So we remember Honda was the first in Japan during traffic jams, and then Mercedes in Europe and the United States, but very limited, okay, and very slow speed. So it it feels tangible, it feels real, it feels like the car companies actually have done their homework this time and feel like they have the technical horsepower in house to make these things happen. And then in the case of Uber, so let me also clarify, because I tweeted that for our friend Ed, the Lucid plus NVIDIA deal is for the baby Gravity and it's for private passenger vehicles. So Lucid's using NVIDIA's stack to do level 2 plus plus and level 3.
That's
The Neuro,
basically NVIDIA Thor, AGS
yes.
Thor. Yeah.
And in Neuro's case, Uber is purchasing Lucid Gravities that have Neuro's hardware software stack on it. So this is the case where Uber is now becoming an owner, a fleet owner and manager. Now they'll probably outsource the management part, but their balance sheet is going to look completely different in 5 years.
Yeah.
So
And then there's the NVIDIA Stellantis Foxconn, which NVIDIA is providing their whole stack based on the Hyperion platform. So quite a few things going on at the same time.
And we just talked about it a couple of weeks ago, the Lyft Tensor Auto VinFast.
Yeah, Tensor Auto X.
So, and I'm actually going to be in San Jose. I should try to figure out if I know anybody at Tensor Auto, maybe make a visit. But it's just a really interesting time because then you have a Wave, which is British, and then you have
Zoox.
Zoox, who, and next week I'm in Florida for an FAV summit, an autonomous vehicle summit, and I met the gentleman. He was a senator in Florida, and he created this advocacy group. So
in Florida, there's the in Orlando and surrounding area. I forget the company that runs these robobuses.
Is it? It's a European company, I want to say.
I forget the name.
I do too, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
So what else?
So I mean, I probably add. You said autonomy 2.0. I could even say autonomy hype 2.0. Who knows?
Well,
maybe not hype.
Because to your point, in China, and I'd done that slide where I had electrification, smartification, automation. I had U.S. and Europe flags still on electrification, and then I had the China flag at automation because of all the level 2 plus that's going to be in 2026 vehicles and beyond. And I was told, and I don't know the numbers, Lay, so but I was told, and I'll try to find them, that the GM take rate for Super Cruise is pretty robust,
Mm-hmm.
and they're pleasantly surprised with that. Blue Cruise is not as good as Super Cruise, and I think that's okay to say that without too much controversy, because Blue Cruise is also much more limited. I think GM has more miles that's mapped, and so a couple of companies that I talked to during the conference, TomTom, and I talked to so
Yeah.
TomTom is being used by the Chinese companies
Yes.
outside of China.
Yes. In fact, I can say that because the few level 2 plus rides that I did in Munich, every one of them talked about using TomTom for mapping navigation, not for the HD map, but for the local. They wouldn't even use Google. They use TomTom, which is an interesting point. Yeah.
The other thing too is I spoke with someone from Here
And
Technologies.
here, yes.
So they're pretty. So I think TomTom and Here are the two major players outside of China
Yeah,
when it
especially
comes
in
to
Europe.
mapping,
Yeah.
especially if you take out Google.
Yeah.
Then those two players kind of dominate.
Yeah.
And it's starting to all piece together a little bit late.
Yeah, and
We
then
are.
we also have e-revs coming in the rest of the world from Hyundai, from GM, right, from others
The Ram.
in the U.S. market, in the American market, right?
Oh man.
What
So
happens in China, right?
and it should be mentioned. Let's circle back a little bit. I'm gonna help you pat me on the back because you had texted a screen grab of Tesla's promotion last week. I said sales will probably be down in October, November, so I anticipate Tesla to do some sort of price cut or non-price
Yeah.
price cut.
So I think
And
the
what,
lease,
an hour later, you text me that. So
yeah, the lease goes up. I think November 4th by $80. It's $329 to lease a Model 3 in Massachusetts. Yeah, not the standard version, the rear wheel, the regular rear wheel drive version. So
yeah, dude. So no surprises there, and I I'm looking forward to the Baby Gravity, and I'm looking forward to the R2. I'm actually really looking forward to the Bolt because if GM markets it properly, if I think there's a huge demand, pent up demand for that Bolt, and I don't know what the out the door price will be because it starts at 29. If we add a bunch of features or a bunch of trim packages,
mid
what?
30s probably. Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. And then the wild card seems to be Slate. You know, they've posted, for those that are wondering, they've posted a few videos. So Google Slate Auto, they posted some marketing videos on YouTube. They're kind of kitschy, cool, kind of fun, and it's almost like they're positioning now as like you can accessorize it any way you want. And there's these speakers that you can take out, and so it's and so do we, I guess fundamentally, two questions: do we believe people really want an analog vehicle, and do we believe that people really want a two-door truck? I think the analog stands a better chance than the two doors.
Yeah.
So but this could be the perfect vehicle for I would be hesitant to buy it for my son or something like that until I really understand crash worthiness, because my son would have to be safe. And so anyways, I don't really have anything else, man. So I take that back. GM also announced huge layoffs, and
Right, the EV stuff, 3,300, 33,000 people.
Tennessee, Detroit Hamtramck, yeah, and so we're seeing, and I've written this in the newsletter years ago. I've written this, and we've talked about it. I said there's going to be layoffs, so that's what's really happening. And then I think we talked about it last week. Georgia, their technical center is going to be closed. GM's technical center, and I think AI is going to take over a lot of those responsibilities of the people that. Oh, one thing that was really cool was Melody Lee. Have you heard of her?
From who?
She is the chief marketing officer for Mercedes-Benz USA.
Oh, okay.
Two E's, so I'm assuming that maybe she's Korean American. But she worked at Cadillac as a director of marketing, and she
Oh,
worked at Herman Miller, so she has a lot of experience on the premium side of marketing. She was a keynote
okay.
yesterday. Really, really great uh, discussion, fireside chat. She talked about, maybe this is not controversial to us, but how the United States is becoming more multicultural, and so figuring out how to market to the Latino community, the African American Black community, the Asian community is important, and it's a business decision. It's not a DEI decision. It's not this or
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And so she just said census numbers for the United States tell us this is where the population is headed.
Hmm.
And then she also talked about there's these new Mercedes commercials that John Hamm used to be the voice of the Mercedes commercials in the
Hmm.
United States,
Hmm.
and they were looking for a new one. And they had over 200 voiceovers, some famous people, some non-famous, and without knowing who it was, they picked Lucy Liu.
Okay.
And the funny thing is, Melody was on stage. She said, "I know what you're thinking. One small Asian woman picks another small Asian woman to become the spokesperson for Mercedes." Everybody laughs. She's like, "That's not it." And she said that her voice over John Hamm's 20 points higher, like in the because they've launched some of these. So next time you see a
Wow.
Mercedes,
Okay.
it
I'll
might not.
take that note. Yeah.
I had no idea that it was Lucy Liu, but she was talking about that. So like, how some executives, when they do fireside chats, they talk for 25 minutes and say absolutely nothing. This was really meaty, and she's the USA. So nothing about what your struggles in China, how do you
Well, in
market in
China,
China?
so China Mercedes, right? I tweeted some of this stuff. They're working with the men's tennis number one player Wang Chuqin, and then McDonald's in cross collab in anticipation of their CLA launch. So it's completely different. Uh, in
Yeah, I
yeah, but
she's
but
she
yeah,
was really cool. I liked
I think
her. I like
definitely
Ralph's. So
in China, these brands they tend to um, sign up more brand ambassadors than the rest of the world, especially Chinese actors, sports professionals. I mean, recent launches, we've seen this. Li Auto i6 had this young actor. The D19 had Fei Xiang. Fei Xiang is one of the most famous. Um, I think he's a Chinese American, very old but very famous.
well, even Cadillac, remember in
Yeah,
April in Shanghai,
yeah,
they
all
had
these
the
brands.
gold medalist ping pong player. So,
Exactly.
but I also think that I think that points to the demographic in China, how it trends
Generally young,
younger,
right?
and
Right.
so more social media
I mean,
savvy, more personality driven.
Lamborghini had their 20-year China celebration, I think last week, and the CEO, he said their average age, I think, was like 32 to 35 for Lamborghini customers in China. It's crazy.
Lamborghini. Oh my god.
Yeah,
32.
yeah. Where did they get the
I
money?
think I was making like $50,000 a year at 32 years old. Like, I'm just making that up, but I wasn't like, I wasn't making Lamborghini money. Let me just say that. So, anyways, let me
No.
see if there's any questions. Oh, why don't the EV maker? So SSJJ asks, SSJJ005, why don't the EV maker just check the battery health through their software?
Well, actually, we eluded this. I think currently, if we talk about Li Auto, if we talk about NIO, Xpeng, or any of other players, I don't think it's uncommon that, because they did say, I think it was like 4 hours before the accident happened, they detected something, and they even notified the owner, but no action was taken. And Li Auto specifically said that could have been something, a lapse on their part, on how that, when that happens. So, which means the battery health monitoring, it's constant. It's not a technology that's uh, difficult. It's there, right? I mean, how NIO monitors their batteries and does the battery check after each battery swap and in the battery swap stations. So it's not that. I think it's what happens afterwards. What
I think
action
there's
needed to be taken. Nowadays, I mean, we talk about a smart EV, as a smart phone on wheels, right? What happens with the car? They can see it, uh, especially the battery. I mean, they probably have a whole data center of what's going on. So
and they also have filters that say if the temperature goes above or below this much, this Celsius or this Celsius, then you ping us an alert and then we'll alert the customer,
yeah,
or it pings
yeah.
an alert to the customer directly.
This
But
is not difficult to achieve. It's what happens afterwards with the driver, with the owner, what kind of actions they take that could.
and remember that these are brand new vehicles. This is a mega that's never been built before, so a lot of, as more and more customers buy it, put miles on it, there are new things that pop up that they don't know about, because this is not an existing product that has
the
12 years of history, and you can really dial it into these certain things that are the high failure rates.
the other thing about this, I was talking with some of the other industry people and friends, chatting, some of the competitors, and I think the other question that they bring up is China's fascination with speed. And by speed, I mean 5C, 6C charging. What that does to the battery, uh, it could be another issue, especially with Li Auto, and others. 10 minutes we can add 500 kilometers.
Well, the Mega
These
was one
are,
of those early ones that
yeah,
had ultra
these
fast charging.
are things. What happens to the battery when you do that repeatedly? I think others are skeptical of it, but to the consumer, it saves me time. So what are the trade-offs?
I think with the Li Auto, I want to say market wide, maybe there needs to be a third party that does some survey that says what's tolerable, right? Below 5 minutes, below 7 minutes, where I don't start to get upset, and then having that knowledge instead of Lay, you did 3 minutes, so I'm going to do 2 minutes. Are we over engineering or taking on too much risk? And nobody cares that it went from 3 minutes to 2 minutes as long as it's under four. Those questions need to be answered, but that's also an outcome of the just intense competition where two has to always one up Lay when he launches something
That
new or
exactly
better.
is it? Yeah. Uh,
And the last thing I'll say is that it's really still very difficult because Liotto hasn't articulated any explanation. So is this a systemic issue across all megas, or was it one bad part in a batch of
it was a
components?
Yeah. It looks like it was a batch of, right. It's 11,000 units out of 20 some, half of what they have sold. the megas. So it's a badge.
But we still don't know that, Lei. They could be just being abundantly cautious and looking at this as a marketing opportunity to really
Good.
ease fears, and ease the hesitancy about purchasing a Li Auto vehicle, which is already in the public sphere.
Yeah.
For other reasons. So, great question. But the other thing that I will note with that question, Lei, is now we get into how much do I want GM, Li Auto, Neo, Xpeng, Ford to know about me? Because if they're monitoring my battery, they probably know where I am. Do I feel comfortable with all this information that they have of me? And so that comes back to the data privacy stuff. And so I don't know where I feel about that, to be honest with you. I give access to Apple for my calendar and stuff like that. They obviously have my contact list, but Apple does prompt you now, allow to share data across apps. You get that window that pops up, right? So at least you get to choose. Before it was a single disclaimer, and you checked it and you clicked.
I think in China, speed and convenience outweighs everything else. That's, I mean, we are part of it. We're consumers. Every time we're in China, what do we do, right?
I guess the other thing too is like, I for sure don't feel comfortable with companies knowing what my kids are doing and stuff like that all the time. Yeah. So, one more. X Nomad 2187. Great questions for those that are still watching the show. If you have any other questions, feel free to post them. How about cell companies knowing where everyone is? Hey, see, I agree. SPX. He basically said phone companies that know where everyone is at all times. I think I don't know where I stand on that, and these are great questions. And each country, each region has a different attitude towards it from a government standpoint and policy standpoint. And then I think Chinese feel a lot different than Europeans and Americans for sure on those attitudes. So it's a great debate. I don't think there's a right answer, but there's a right answer for you and your family, I think. And what we should demand, whether you're Chinese, American, or European, is if Lei, you are building the next great iPhone and you use my data to consolidate amongst other people's data so that you can monetize it as a new service you're providing, you should pay me for my data. We shouldn't have a disclaimer once we turn on a machine or a product for the first time saying you can use my data. It should say, we're happy to compensate you for it. And it doesn't need to be, a bunch of money, but guess what, dude? I need to understand and have better control over it. And if you want to use my data, then it's like taking a picture of me. You would have to pay me if you want to use it in your marketing campaigns, right? So anyways, we're getting off the topic of
Wow.
So, but cool, man. Hey, everyone, happy Halloween. Be safe tonight. Don't be too scary.
What happened?
Apres and Arnaldi. Sodium-ion battery. When will be an EV? It already is. Hybrid.
So if I had to pick a roadmap, right? So sodium-ion battery is next after LFM and NCM, where solid state. Oh, by the way, China just announced a new name for semi-solid state batteries. You no longer can use that. Now it's called the solid liquid batteries.
So it's more confusing.
Yeah. So sodium ion, I think it's small batch, slowly. In applications, we're having that, but volume is very small. Whereas the truly solid state battery, I think we've heard already enough comments that this is something way out into the 2030s. starting 2030, so next decade. But so far, right, LFM dominates.
I think what's important is that it is about the technology, but LFP, there's so much capacity for LFP that it's going to be hard to beat for the next 10 years from a cost standpoint. Now, availability is different, especially when there's tariffs and artificial lifters for pricing. But CATL could pretty much supply every automaker almost globally. And the combination of CATL, BYD, Goshen, Kalb, AESC, they could definitely supply a lot of LFP to most automakers around the world alone. So LFP is going to be here for a very, very, very long time. I'll catch you on DMs, man. Have a good weekend, everyone. We will catch you all next week.
Bye-bye.